Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing fine, enjoying your breakfast. It is the 4th day of the Congress already, and today is Science and Academic Day. I am Tanja MASSON-ZWAAN, and I'm the IAF Vice President for Science and Academic Relations. And so my predecessor on the IAF Bureau started this initiative of having a Science and Academic Day. As you know, every day in the Congress has a theme. And with the IAF Secretariat, I have been thinking about something that we could do during the breakfast and the lunch of this special day. And we came up with the idea to do a quiz, to start your day with something light. I hope you're all enjoying your beautiful breakfast here and that you don't mind us talking away a little bit. We hope it will be of interest. So we have put together a panel with some experts to talk about the theme that we devised for this breakfast, which is astronomy at the crossroads between science and commerce. I'm sure you've all heard about the issues that have come up these past years with reflections of satellites on astronomical observations and also radio interference. And we thought it would be interesting to dive into that topic a little bit. So we have a panel here with 3 experts. I will briefly introduce them, and then what we will do is a quiz. So you have on the tables a paper that was kindly prepared. Everything was set up by Stefano here of the Secretariat. Thank you very much, Stefano. So do take a photo of that QR code of the quiz so that you can answer the questions. And once we get the answers in, we have 3 nice questions that we designed. Each of the experts will give some comments on their specific field of expertise relating to this topic of astronomy at the crossroads between science and commerce. So let me first introduce the panelists. We have here to my left Emma LOUDEN. She is an astrophysicist and a consultant on space policy and industry trends. And she's a 4th-year Ph.D. student in astrophysics at Yale University. And she's passionate about future-focused strategy for astrophysics and engaging the public with space exploration and applying evidence-based solutions to solve the world's most pressing problems. And she also focuses on her STEM workforce project and supporting the next generation for astronomers through her summer science program. So Emma, we have with you devised a question, and I will read the question and you will find it on a screen, I believe, somewhere, which is, what percentage of data over the course of 1 year from a 1-meter telescope that observes in both optical and infrared would actually suffer from harmful interference from satellites? So this is a little bit to set the scene. What is actually really the problem for both optical and radio astronomy in terms of interference? So you can start answering these questions, and as the answers come in, I don't know where we see, we see it there, but I don't see it there. Oh, it's already there. Okay. And then, oh, okay, there I see the percentages. I have to stand up. Is it 60%, is it 90%, is it 30%, or is it 10%? I see most of you believe that it is 60%. I see quite a majority of 40% for that. Excuse me? Shall we show the correct? Yes, let's show the correct answer, which will be a surprise. And I'm going to pass the microphone to Emma to comment on that. Is that, did you show the correct answer? Go ahead. Huh? Okay, well, okay, oh, we see the correct answer. Actually, so it was the least chosen answer, 14% only, and that was the correct answer. So Emma, you have some explanations to do. Go ahead.
Sure. So thank you all for being here this morning. I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is near and dear to my heart. I was interested when I first learned this statistic too, because it was much lower than I was expecting it would be. We hear a lot of talk about the impact of satellites on astronomy, and justly so. There is a lot of impact and already in the data that we're seeing, but that impact right now, like for a 1 year, 1 meter telescope that observes in the optical would only be about 10% of observations. So big picture, that's not that many observations. But as we look toward the future, we've seen almost a 10 times increase in the number of satellites in the last 10 years, and we're anticipating about an order of magnitude increase in the coming 10 years. So while the impact may only be 10% right now, and that can be easy to write off as not something to be concerned about, that's where I really get interested in thinking about what can we think about for the future as astronomers and as astronomers working within the space industry to say, how do we plan for this future where we're going to have an order of magnitude increase and that number is going to go up. So how do we begin to think about that strategy right now? Because we know that design of telescopes, design of instruments, design of mitigation strategies, it is a long-term process, and it's usually one that takes a while. So we need to be thinking about that right now if we want to be able to have a productive scientific astronomy enterprise 10, 15 years from now that is based in the ground.
Thanks, Emma. And do you think it is more a problem for optical than for radio? Is there a difference, or is it the same?
So we'll hear more about this a little bit later in the panel as well, but those are the two areas that are being most impacted, because with optical we can get the reflection of the sunlight off of the satellites that then interferes with the telescopes. With radio, it's actually more complicated because it's signals that intermix that are much harder to piece apart. For optical interference, there are mitigation strategies that can be developed to plan when do you open a telescope, how do you know which tracks are satellites, which tracks are asteroids, whereas for radio, and we'll hear more about this later, it's much harder to pull out what signal comes from what and post-process the data in a way that is effective scientifically.
Thank you. And yes, indeed, we have seen, as far as optical interference is concerned, we've seen some corrective actions like dark set, visor set, so painting the satellite black so that it doesn't reflect the sunlight, or putting a kind of visor over it. But let's look a little bit deeper into that radio issue, and I'm very happy that we have with us here Timur KADYROV from the International Telecommunication Union. Timur is a senior radio communication engineer in the Space Services Department, the SSD of the Radiocommunication Bureau of the International Telecommunication Union, which is a very old specialized agency of the United Nations and very involved in everything that is related to frequency management. Before joining the ITU, he has been involved for many, many years with the international regulation of orbit spectrum use. And within the Radiocommunication Bureau, he is working on responsible for the issues of international coordination of non-GSO, that is non-geostationary satellite systems, which includes such systems in LEO, MEO and HEO, and of course specifically concerning constellations and their examination. So we have seen indeed a huge increase of constellations, and that is, as Emma said, increasing the impact. So Timur, could you say a little bit about, oh no, we're going to do the question. I'm sorry, first the question and then you're going to, so our radio question is as follows. Why do radio astronomy stations suffer from radio interference from large constellations? And you have 5 possible answers, and you're asked to rank them in terms of relevance. So you can normally pick several ones. So is it because there are because the operators are not able to control the interference, because the transmitters are not sufficiently technically equipped? Is it a lack of knowledge about international regulations, or is it a lack of sharing information between the community of astronomers and constellation operators? Let's see. I hope you are all filling in your Slido. And Stefano, you tell me when you think we're about done. So this will show us in order of importance the number of answers that a certain answer has gotten. Oh, you have already given us the one that got the most answers. Is that the green one? Sorry? Oh, that's the correct, yeah. So that's the most important. So Timur, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Tanya, and thank you for coming to this breakfast. And I'm happy to be part of this event. This is in fact very interesting. I mean, because basically all the answers you see, they're not totally wrong and not totally correct. I mean, so I just picked most probable case when we actually, which is a reason why actually radio astronomers can suffer interference from non-GSO constellation. And first of all, just let me explain to you that ITU is not normally dealing with the light interference, light pollution. So our mandate, or actually we can study without any limit spectrum, but when it comes to interference, this is clear. With the radio interference, our mandate to resolve or actually to avoid causing harmful interference to different stations operating. And normally we are dealing with man-made noise or intentional interference, but in case of light pollution, which is astronomers are currently suffering from, it's basically not really man-made, right? So it's just sun reflection from satellites. So basically, the basis for this question is really focusing on the radio interference, and I just would like to walk you through all the possible answers here, because I mean, there is certainly elements present in each answer which are quite correct as well. So when we're talking about no international regulatory framework, there is a regulatory framework exists. There is a ITU radio regulation which is establishing table of frequency allocation, which is providing, I would say, allocation to radio astronomers where they can operate and at the same time enjoy protection from other services and stations. So there is a regulation mechanism already existing. The other case, which we actually found recently because of the non-GSO constellations, that not necessarily radio astronomers were using all these allocations which were existing in radio regulation, because, well, skies were quiet. I mean, so previously you were just having GSO constellations, or I would say GSO satellites, which are around GSO orbit. They are fixed. You know exactly where they're located. You know when you are doing your radio astronomy observation, you simply can avoid just pointing your, I would say, your station with a narrow beam to this particular satellites. But with a non-GSO constellation or LEO constellation, this becomes more problematic because they are constantly moving. They are big in number, of course, there are many satellites, and it's more difficult for astronomers to actually conduct such kind of measurements. And basically, now they are quite worried about this fact, and that is the reason why we have so many news regarding light pollution and requirement to actually avoid such kind of interference. And there are some steps being taken in this regard. Some member states, for example, they are establishing radio quiet zones. These are geographical areas where there is no, let's say, telecommunication transmission normally happen. It's like in Chile or ESCAO as well in Australia. So, and there is basically a request to ITU to allow registering this kind of radio quiet zone, just to actually disseminate information between community. What a kind of zone are we established by certain member states, and this information can be available for the satellite operators to also to consider this particular element in order to kind of avoid polluting skies with light interference as well as with the radio interference. And this is actually we are coming because of the second answer, because of lack of sharing of information. Yeah. Yes, sorry. So basically, all this answer which you see is kind of correct in certain sense, and the actually reason why certain operator is failing to equip its own satellite with sufficient with equipment which is required to protect radio astronomy observations. I don't see the last answer. Well, I see the last answer, but I don't see what was the reply for the last one. 8%, yes. So it's basically it's more or less correct as well. With that, I would pass microphone to Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timur. So that's fascinating. We have actually several reasons, and which are all in some measure important, but and we have some regulations, but they are perhaps not sufficient. And that is why we're going to our last panelist without further ado, who is Tejas Bharadwaj. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Tejas is a space lawyer like myself, and he works with the Technology and Society program of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, India. He is also a prospective member of the IIASL, and he was part of the working group of this institute on light pollution of the night sky from the space law perspective, which recently published a report which is available on the IIASL website. He also contributed to a Dark and Quiet Skies report by with UNUSA and the International Astronomical Union, and he won the Diedericks Verschoor Award for Best Paper by a Young Author, which also dealt with this specific topic, protecting the dark skies of the Earth from satellite constellations and international space law. So he knows a lot about this topic. We're happy to have him with us. And his question is as follows, quite interesting. Should astronomy be considered a space activity under international space law? Because that, of course, would define whether or not space law applies and whether we can use space law to try to solve some of these problems. So either the answer is yes, it should be, or it is no, it should not be considered a space activity. Let's see what we're getting. Big majority for yes. Actually, sorry, we had the third answer. It depends on whether it is performed by a space observatory or a ground observatory. Yeah, could be it. Let's show the right answer, Stefano. Okay, Tejas, please comment.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that everyone got the question right. Right. So that's really a good sign that people here are aware of this issue there. So before going on, I would like to emphasize on the legal aspect. There is Dr. Masson here who's worked a lot on it. And we have also had inputs from the engineers, from ITU and astronomers. But I would give you some kind of a context before we move on as to why the legal aspect is very important. So the panel's titled Astronomy at the Crossroad Between Commerce and Science. And thus both of these aspects need to be equally emphasized. The quality of promoting equity and balancing the rights to operate satellite constellations with the right to perform astronomy needs to be established. There needs to be a balance between satellite constellation as well as astronomy. So satellite constellations that offer communication and internet services are very important. They are a breakthrough technology, especially considering that there is a lot of digital divide around the world that needs to be addressed. Coming from India, a country that has developed an effective digital public infrastructure to offer social benefits to the citizens, I can imagine the immense benefits the digital connectivity that satellite constellations can offer. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge the need to protect observatories, both ground-based and space-based. As you can see in the answers that you all have, the answers that you have given, right? So the only way you can ensure a balance in space activities is to have a strong legal framework that recognizes these rights. Astronomy, as you all know, is a vital part of space exploration. They help us understand the universe. They're also important for space situational awareness and planetary defense. To strengthen the measures of protection against light interferences, we need to recognize astronomy as a space activity that is protected under the freedom of exploration and use of outer space and under Article 1 of the Outer Space Treaty. For many of our audiences here who may not know what Outer Space Treaty is, Outer Space Treaty represents one of the most important documents of international law and governance of outer space activities. The Outer Space Treaty was drafted and adopted in the 1960s, much before the issue of light interferences were even became an issue. Right. So it is a testament to the beauty of the treaty that still remains relevant after 56 years. The recognition of astronomy as a space activity under Outer Space Treaty would help it to be protected under an international law that is ratified by 114 countries around the world. And this would help in offering a solution to this truly international issue. Why this is an international issue? Because you might operate satellite constellations from one country, but the effects that it might have on another country, the observatory that's located in another country, right? And a lot of our audiences may ask here how ground-based astronomy can be recognized as a space activity. Well, the Outer Space Treaty recognizes activities that even happen on Earth. For example, Outer Space Treaty recognizes attempts to launch space objects, even if they don't reach space, as well as the rescue and recovery and return of astronauts and space objects that have re-entered the Earth, respectively. So this recognition is very important, and there are some key provisions under the Outer Space Treaty, such as Article 9, right, that calls for state parties to exercise due regard to the interest of other while performing their activities. And pursuantly towards this, there are a lot of voluntary efforts of coordination that's been undertaken between satellite constellation operators and observatories. Well, they're voluntary and they're appreciated, but currently they're not binding or legally enforceable. And that is why we need a strong legal framework. And pursuantly at the UN CUPOS, like Mr. Timur said here, radio interference is an issue that's being discussed at ITU. But the optical interference, if you see, the light interferences, that's an issue that's being discussed at UN CUPOS, the United Nations Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. And the Dark and Quiet Skies agenda is an agenda that's been adopted, and it's been discussed. And it's a promising sign that there will be an international norm probably soon on this issue. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tejas. And we're going to let you finish your breakfast, but perhaps just to say that it's clear that this topic has many different angles, and I'm very grateful for our panelists to highlight them. And it's clear that this is a topic that will only gain in relevance. And of course, it's not to say that one activity is more important than the other. We need both commerce, we need the constellations to provide internet to the whole world, but we also need to protect astronomy as a basic science, which is often funded by public money. And so it is important to recognize this and to continue to protect the dark and quiet skies, as well as facilitate communications for all humankind. So thank you so much, Emma and Timur and Tejas, and please enjoy the rest of your breakfast, and thank you for participating in our quiz today.
Before you concentrate on the breakfast, I would like to first of all thank very much our Vice President for coming up with this initiative. Together with Stefano, you have shaped a new type of breakfast scenario here. Of course, a big thanks to you, to the speakers here, and to you who have joined us at this breakfast. It just gives us the right signal. We've seen that only 1 out of the 3 questions commonly here, on average, we were able to guess. That tells me at least that we do not know sufficient about the challenges which astronomy is facing in connection with space activities, and therefore I think we'll take that up with your help in the future also to reflect astronomy strongly in our program. Thank you once again, and thank you. Enjoy the breakfast.